We're with Talib Ahmed Bensouda, Mayor of Kanifing. We've tackled mayoral issues already. We're now talking about the Unite movement for change. You spoke about, term limits. Voluntarily, you decided to leave after 2 terms.
Yeah.
All right? Now you are heading for the presidency. What would be the one thing you will prioritize in your first 100 days in office, if ever you became president?
Hands down, the most pressing issue is the cost of living. That's
even more important than the Constitution.
That is more important than the Constitution. I mean, you have to have a full belly to think about laws. And today, the suffering of the average Gambian is beyond, what anybody would think about Gambia. Then, of course, the constitution process. But I think there are certain laws that could not wait for the full constitution process to end, and that is the Public Order Act, and that is term limits. These are 2 things I believe a president should do in their first 100 days in office.
How would you tackle the cost of living? Because very often you hear people say, yeah, they talk about, oh, this is bad, but they never tell you how to fix the problem.
Right.
And trust begins with somebody condemning one thing, but actually proposing a solution.
Right. So like I said, we will develop the economic policy for the party. We will develop 100 proposals for the candidate. I could not come out at this early stage and give a detailed step-by-step plan on what we will do with the central bank policies or what we'll do with monetary policy or fiscal policy. But one thing's for sure is that there needs to be action. One thing's for sure is that there's, of course, bloated, budgets with the government. One thing's for sure is that one needs to look at local production as an alternative to importing everything. So, for example, eggs. I don't see why there should be any importation of eggs in Holland when there's so many local poultry outfits that could be subsidized.
People say the difficulty with that is, yes, we have a lot of people, wanting to go into the poultry business, but feed is the biggest problem.
Right. So because we have not built supply chains. I hosted some Senegalese the other day, and what we were talking about is the Casamance region and agro-processing and how we should build infrastructure between Senegal and Gambia and remove some of the barriers of trade. ECOWAS exists as a treaty, but in practice it's not being implemented. I mean, just look at the relationship between Gambia and Senegal now, and look at the countries that we ban certain products from each other. We don't strategize on comparative advantage, who is best at what. We don't remove the barriers to trade. So I think there's areas where we can collaborate and really bring down the cost of things like feed. I think there's areas where government can intervene and subsidize. I think aid could be spent more judiciously to these targeted sectors. So like I said, our plan would come out, but I think Gambia is so small, Uncle Peter. It's just so small that one could really have impact in a very short period of time. You look at today local production of furniture. Who's protecting them? Who's helping them when they're competing with importers? Things like government saying all public offices must be furnished locally, no importation of goods. How many jobs could that create? That could introduce economies of scale. So one of the reasons costs are very high, we can't bring about efficient production because we don't have the numbers. To bring about efficient production, enjoy economies of scale, you must have demand. We are not creating that demand, and with smart government policy, you can. Government is the biggest spender. So how they behave with their budget also brings down the pressure on the forex. And I just gave an example. I said, what if government had a policy that electric vehicles that are imported would enjoy lower duties, or government would not procure any diesel-powered cars? That alone reduces the amount of fuel importation and brings down the pressure on the forex. And that has an effect on inflation and the cost of goods.
And even climate change.
Yeah, because the last electric vehicle range I saw, it can go 700 kilometers on a single charge. Gambia is 495 at the longest.
You could get to Basse.
So you could drive
probably halfway back.
6-7 days as a government officer without recharging. So these are all smart policies one can bring about.
You just echoed Kemo when you talked about the rate at which the party is growing.
Yeah.
I mean, it overwhelms all of you. Some in the opposition might see that as a threat to opposition unity, because you will become so big at some stage that you'll start thinking that you can defeat the ruling coalition, next year. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think we can become big enough to defeat the ruling incumbency, but that doesn't make us overconfident or arrogant.
Well, what about being opposition to,
so
being a threat to opposition unity?
No, we would not. So we believe in partnerships. We believe in coming together, but it has to be on principles and values and fundamentals. I do not subscribe to the idea of coalitioning just for the sake of removing one person. That absolutely makes no sense to me. I mean, you coalition because of you're for something. So that should be based on principles.
You're for change. You don't want Barrow to continue in office. That is the change.
So it's not about not wanting Barrow to continue in office. It's about many things. It's about, one, not wanting any president to go for 3 terms. That's a fundamental thing. We don't want, for example, the self-perpetuation of power. That's another thing. We, of course, believe there's many reforms that should have been done by this government that they failed to do. The Constitutional Review Commission, the TRRC recommendations, the civil sector reform, the security sector reform. So these are all fundamental things we believe that this government should have done, and we are for anybody who wants to do this in their first year in office, and we would partner with anybody who wants to do that, bringing in a new constitution that is more democratic, subscribing to term limits and the amendment of the Public Order Act, things like that. So I think it's just about principles, fundamentals, values. That is what we are for. But it's not about removing one man or trying to install one man or just bringing change for change's sake, because that coalition will quickly fall apart again, and Gambia will be thrusted into political mess. So I think coalition should be based on principles, values, and a vision for the country. If people share it, you should align. If you don't share it, don't align.
It's yet to be formally, an entity, a political entity, but have you been approached by people trying to forge, for want of a better expression, a grand opposition coalition?
Yes, we've been approached by several people. We've also approached several parties to introduce ourselves. So I think we're in that stage of people are sharing ideas. Well, like I said, the Unite movement, when we do sit as a party with our executive, my position would be let's only coalition with people we are aligned with. There's no point in coalitioning with people that are non-aligned, because there's no coalition. We need to go back to the description of what is a coalition. I think it's like minds coming together and partnering up to contest in an election.
How does the idea of working together with other young politicians like Amadou Ka appeal to Talib and the UMC?
Oh, I would love that. I've heard.
Have you met?
I've not met him. I've heard him. I've heard other young, stellar politicians like the Bakari Baji, the honorable member, Amadou Ka. I've heard of the Golden Era Party, the new young guy Saho. Yes. I love that, because I got into politics at the age of 29, and I felt lonely. I looked around. I was referred to as the youngest mayor. And from the background,
but you were the youngest mayor.
Yeah, so I didn't necessarily like that title,
Why?
Because I
Is
feel
it stigmatizing?
No, so I believe young people for the longest time have been disinterested. Some would argue have been pushed out. So I feel like the world has changed. The young now are the majority, and politics should be reflective of the demographics. So not that we don't want older people. I think older people bring also...
Thanks for the assurance.
No, they bring a lot of value. I think they bring a lot of value. I just think there should be more participation of younger folk. I don't like also the politics of discriminating with age, saying this guy is too old, that guy is too young. I think it's about character, it's about what you bring to the table, and your capacity.
And what's your position on this quota for women? And are you going to set the example by living up to that belief that a certain number of women need to be in our party to reflect who we are as a nation?
Of course. So I think it's a form of affirmative action. Women have been disenfranchised for too long. Culturally, they've been suppressed for very long, that they should not be leaders. And I mean, even when you have young people come into our offices, and it's a group of young men and women, and they say it's time to speak, you will hear 3 young men speak and no woman. And sometimes I have to insist, why don't we hear a lady's perspective?
Oh, you had?
Yeah, all the time. It's this every day. So I think it's about how do we uplift them so they can. So affirmative action is a deliberate effort to make sure people who have been traditionally suppressed or historically disenfranchised, to bring them to the table through quota systems. But I think more sustainable is a systemic change and a cultural evolution. So women know that they're capable or more capable than men.
People talk a lot about Rwanda and the advancement of Rwanda.
Right.
And of course, inevitably, you could look at Rwanda and say Rwanda stands out because
Absolutely.
this is the one country where women outnumber men,
Right.
in the sphere of politics, leadership, and all of that.
Right.
Is that a good example for when ultimately we have the UMC executive, or whether it's just going to be called Unite executive? Can we expect up to 30% of the executive to be women?
So this is something that we will look at in our constitution, and of course it's something I support and something I would certainly propose. But like I've said, having women be part of the forefront is quite important, not only for the gender balance, they also bring new perspectives that would uplift women. And women are the most important person in any household. I certainly wouldn't know what to do if my wife was not in the household. That's the anchor.
I call mine the interior minister. Yeah, he takes care of everything.
Yeah, so the woman's role in a community, in a family, in a nation cannot be underscored. Cannot be, underrated. It must be underscored as something that is fundamental. And giving them a voice and ensuring that the historical biases are removed and making sure they are protected. I had a brilliant young lady who wanted to join Unite last week, and we spent 30 minutes, and they were convinced. They said, Talib, I really want to join. I really want to participate. I even want to take a lead. But my fear is, would there be some sort of political attacks to my femininity? Because I often see that when women take this forefront, they're attacked just for being a woman. And
just like people with disabilities. If you had somebody with a disability join your party, that's the first thing they will attack.
People notice. So it's something that is of concern in this country. And now with social media, where there seems to be no rules, seems to be no discipline.
How are you dealing with social media?
So I'm not on it.
And the growth of your party. Oh, yeah, I thought I was the only one not on social media.
No, so social media, I believe, is an outlet. So I have people who manage my outlets. I create the content, all the content. I give it to people.
Yeah, but how can you create that if you don't know what you are responding to? Because in most cases,
so it's not responding. So it's more of projecting our principles, projecting our plans, our projects, or our ideas, or our events.
Okay.
I don't believe in crossfire. It adds no value for yourself. It adds no value for the population. I believe there's instances where you bring clarity, but aside from that, I don't engage in the rest.
Fantastic. Sorry, I may appear to be rushing you, but because I want you to leave here dead on 11 o'clock. Responding, I want you to respond to 2 things: the auditor's forced removal from office, the clampdown on youth demonstrations, seemingly calling for the obvious. Data price was down to a certain level, and suddenly with state intervention, because Pura is part of the state, it's gone up again. How do you respond to some of these issues? And the president saying Alkalolu, Sefolu, and whatever, they all need to prioritize. They all need to be involved in politics, and Hamad Ba emphasizing that by saying, even civil servants should prioritize the re-election of President Barrow.
So I think if you look at our conversation today, I think I've indirectly answered most of these things. You look at the demonstrations. I think when demonstrations happen, it's government that actually make them big. or bring so much media attention on them because of trying to prevent people to exercise their basic human right and their freedom of speech. And it brings us back to the Public Order Act. You know, it was just put in place to sort of stifle dissent or to control the masses. So demonstrations should not require a permit for what? I want to state my grievance. I invite the press. Police should actually come there to protect me and to guide me. And
they
to
should, but when the Constitution says you require a permit...
That's when the Public Order Act has to come into question. I think even when you want to demonstrate, you should not even go to the government. You should come to your city council and say, look, we want to demonstrate in this area. Could you guys help us close the traffic?
Demonstrations in London
are
about
it's local. It's a local issue.
Yes.
It's just like if you wanted to have a naming ceremony and you wanted to close down your street, it's the same as a demonstration. You're using a public system. You might disturb your neighbors. You might want to close a street.
Would you have loved to have those powers, that they come to you, you know, rather than...
Yeah, so for example, if you came to me and you wanted to close the main vein of the municipality, and for example, we could not close traffic for that activity, then you can do your demonstration anywhere. You don't need a permit to close the traffic. You can do your demonstration at the town square or the youth monument or wherever you like. But that should not, there should be no human being who should determine whether somebody has the right to exercise their...
So the Public Order Act, you listed it among the top 3 that you would deal with.
Of course.
So that's just
I've already listed it.
Yes.
So the audit office, for example, we've dealt with it. Right? The problem is the president should not have the power to hire or fire the person who should audit him and his government. That makes no sense. No. The person who's supposed to ensure you're accountable, you can fire and hire them.
And what about his pronouncements on what is meant to be an apolitical...
I've answered that again. So to NPP, politics is a game. It's not serious. It's just about how can I win. So the law already says the alcalo should not involve in politics. You're the custodian of the law. You're the governor of Gambia. The president is the governor of the entire country, who should protect our laws and implement our laws. So if that governor is coming and saying, oh, forget this law because of my own personal interest, so I can win my opponents, it's just a game. It's not
How
serious.
will you make the Meet the People tour different from what it has been over the years?
So I think it's just been a platform of, like I said, self-perpetuation. In those days, remember, the Meet the People tour would happen every year, but political parties only had, was it 14 days to campaign before an election? So it was just a strategy to allow the incumbent to campaign year on year out for 5 years, while political parties could not campaign until there was 2 weeks to an election. So these are all bad laws that need to be looked at. I mean, meeting the people does not have to be in a tour format.
Especially in this day and age.
I think the president should make his business to engage and meet the people through town halls. You know, take a stadium in Farafenye, invite everybody to come on board. If you want to visit a local farm, go visit a local farm. If you don't. Remember, people will elect you, vote for you or not, based on your level of engagement and the trust you build within them. But it doesn't have to be a tour format that is sponsored by the taxpayer. It's basically the taxpayer sponsoring a political tour.
And finally, because it says 10:59, 1 minute, so I'll give you 1 minute. Where
Sure.
do you see UMC in 5 years' time?
UMC in 5 years.
Whether you win next year or not.
So UMC is not about one election, certainly not. It's not about one individual, certainly not. It's about changing politics in this country, changing government in this country, and delivering for the people. We see in 5 years' time, we would be in control of parliament and local government and the presidency. Certainly, we also would have developed a track record of consistency, track record of accountability, transparency, but of innovation and equity for the people. So where we see it going is we hope to be the party that would uplift all Gambians, end poverty in this country, and turn Gambia from a poor and low-income country to a middle-income country that is democratic and serves for all peoples.
All right. And if there is any message you came here with that you haven't been able to put across, that's your audience.
Right. So thank you so much, Uncle Peter, and listeners of West Coast Radio. It's a pleasure to be back here. As Talib Bensouda, now of the Unite Movement for Change, Our politics is a politics of difference. What we want to bring is integrity, innovation, equality. Bringing all Gambians in an inclusive system that ends factionalism, nativism, tribalism. To develop and build this country, we need to do it together, but we need to ensure that people are respected and protected, especially those who are vulnerable. We can do it. We can uplift this country. We can be the example for West Africa, the sub-region, and the world at large. Other than that, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Talib Ahmed Bensouda, Mayor of Kanifing Municipality, hoping from next year that title becoming President of the Republic of the Gambia with his Unite Movement for Change.
Excellent jam, Suway.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do dede. Luta munulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello? Ano lay waxal?
Busel mu fine.
What?
Eh, busel mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Accina Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, busel mu fine. Wave, your money is yours.
Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
In the Gambia, we all move to different paces. Time is money, convenience is power, and now both are in your hands. No more long lines, no more late payments, no more missed chances, not anymore. Because now the Gambia has its own super app, Zap. One app, one tap, endless convenience. Send money instantly, pay your bills in seconds, shop without borders, pay your rides, order your meal, buy your ticket, deposit and withdraw money for absolutely free. No extra charges, no hidden fees, only on Zap Super App. This is not just convenience. This is confidence. This is the future in your hands. And the best part, Zap is born right here. Built for us, designed for every Gambian home, every Gambian dream. So don't wait in the past. Step into the future. Download Zap today on App Store and Play Store and enjoy endless free services. Call us today on our toll-free number 1666 or on 260-0001. Zap. All in one. All for you. Tap in. Zap in.